Bully nga kasi yung mga yellow pink. Bully silang mga namumuno sa yellow pink. Paano? Pero ako, makikita mo, karakter ng tao. It boils down to the leadership. When you allow bully, you're also the biggest bully. You're the godfather of bully. In this case, godmother. Pari, tabi ka na sa Gedli. Pagsalitain mo yung amo mo. Pagsalitain mo yung amo mo. O baka hindi pa mabasa? Kailangan yung teleprompter. Hindi talaga.
That was Manila City Mayor and presidential candidate Isko Moreno in a sortie in Bohol. Moreno doubled down on his attacks against opponent Vice President Leni Robredo, this time challenging her to deny her camp and supporters' attempts supposedly to get him and other candidates to withdraw. Moreno went so far as to call Robredo the godmother of bullies and even took a swipe at the Vice President's spokesperson, Barry Gutierrez, telling him to stop speaking for Robredo. Time for today's biggest headlines. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Presidential candidate and Manila City Mayor Isko Moreno just will not let up. He unleashed fresh attacks against Vice President Leni Robredo and her camp, but Robredo's team had but one letter in a response for Moreno. Romel Lopez with The Big Story.
All eyes were on presidential candidate Isko Moreno as he conducted his campaign visit in Bohol. He kept his cool for most part of the sortie, but things got heated when the Easter press con was brought up once again. This time, the Manila mayor went on to dare Vice President Leni Robredo and her camp.
I challenge Bam Aquino. Sige. Tingnan natin. Tingnan natin. I challenge Bam Aquino to deny it. I challenge the Honorable Vice President. Pasinungalingan nyo kami. Pasinungalingan nyo kami kung di kayo nag-attempt. Nang makita ng taong bayan ng katotohanan. Kung sino ang fake, kung sino ang totoo.
He issued the same challenge to Robredo's spokesman, Attorney Barry Gutierrez, but this time issuing a warning that they have evidence to back their claim.
Barry, mag-ingat ka. May CCTV ang Office of the Vice President. May CCTV yung bahay sa McKinley. Barry, tabi ka na sa Gedli. Pagsalitain mo yung amo mo. Pagsalitain mo yung amo mo. O baka hindi pa mabasa? Kailangan yung teleprompter.
But as usual, Moreno capped off his tirades with an offer to be an alternative candidate for those seeking peace of mind. He vowed to put an end to political bickering should he be elected. His running mate, Dr. Willie Ong, made it clear that despite differences in opinion, he will stick with Moreno.
Minsan baka hindi kami pareho lang a little sa opinion, yun ang karakter ko, yun ang karakter niya, pero 100% ang support ko kay Mayor Isko. Huwag kayong mag-entertain na si Doc lilipat, imposible yon.
In response to Moreno's recent pronouncement, Attorney Gutierrez simply replied K with a smiley on Twitter. Robredo, meanwhile, has yet to comment on Moreno's fresh attack. For News 5, Romel Lopez. We are One News.
What should we make of this series of tirades from Manila Mayor Isko Moreno against Vice President Leni Robredo? That big question and more with UST Political Science Department Chairman Professor Dennis Coronacion. Professor Coronacion, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening. It's always a pleasure being here in your program.
Professor, the message towards and against Vice President Leni Robredo is clear. But what do the words of Isko Moreno mean for his own campaign?
Actually, at this point, it's important for us to know what's going on inside the mind of Manila City Mayor Isko Moreno as a presidential candidate. And if we're going to think about his mindset, we have to take into account the status of his campaign. So where is he now, and how is he faring compared to the other candidates? And if you're going to base it on the survey numbers alone, we can see that his campaign is not doing good. So I suppose that would mean that Mayor Scott Moreno is his mindset is that he has nothing to lose,
Yeah.
all right, and he could do anything to upend what would have been a losing battle for him. So his strategy perhaps is to, since he could not convince, and I think he admitted it during the weekend press con, that it would be very difficult to convince the Marcos loyalists to go over to his side. So I'm thinking that he's probably thinking that he can win over to his side, the supporters of the other presidential candidates, particularly VP Lenny Robredo.
Because I mean that's a good point, and I wanted to get to that because just weeks ago, about a month ago, their campaign said that clearly the common enemy, they said, is Bongbong Marcos, and that was in fact their words. And even in the press conference last Sunday, they said the objective should be to beat number one. Why is all his energy focused on number two?
Well, he's trying to replace number two, candidate number two. That's his goal. Since it's impossible for him, statistically speaking, to beat candidate number one, the first candidate. So I think he's probably thinking that it's feasible, it's more achievable to at least become make as a target candidate number two, hoping that her supporters would go to his side. But I don't know if it's going to succeed since we have already seen the immediate response of the supporters of Vice President Lenny Robredo. They got turned off with what happened during the press con over the weekend. And some are even saying that those who are supporting the mayor some of them have already become disgusted and they do not want to vote for him anymore. So I think it's a miscalculation on his part.
Okay, Professor Coronacion, maraming salamat po. UST Political Science Department Chairman Professor Dennis Coronacion. And days after the Easter press conference where he was supposed to attend, Senator and presidential candidate Manny Pacquiao finally speaks up. In his visit to Ilocos Norte, Pacquiao said that what happened at the conference was unexpected and that he was not aware that there would be a manifesto to be signed in the briefing. Similar to Senator Ping Lacson's claim, Pacquiao said Moreno went off script. Their original plan supposedly was just to call for an honest elections and not to pick on any candidate. Pacquiao also stressed that calling on any other candidate to withdraw was not part of the plan.
Wala sa usapan yung manira tayo ng tao doon at magsasabing mag-withdraw ka, wala mag-withdraw. At unexpected yung mga sinabi doon.
And these are the other big stories tonight. The Comelec has junked the final petition seeking to disqualify the candidacy of Ferdinand Marcos Jr., clearing the survey frontrunner of legal challenges at the division level. Meanwhile, OCTA research says there's still a slim chance for Vice President Lenny Robredo to win the race, as a good number of voters are still undecided, but they admit it's bound to be an uphill climb. And Game 6 of the PBA Governors Cup Finals has been postponed after a fire broke out at the smart Araneta Coliseum. These big stories after the break. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The Comelec First Division has junked the final disqualification case lodged against presidential candidate Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for lack of merit. With this, Marcos Jr.'s camp would like to believe that there should be no longer any question on whether or not he is qualified to run for the post. Marian Enriquez with this report.
In its ruling, Comelec First Division concluded that there was no moral turpitude involved in Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s failure to file his income tax returns. The decision also stated that the petitioners are, quote, gravely mistaken for insisting that the former senator must be disqualified due to his sentence, which carries 3 years of imprisonment and a 30,000 fine. They pointed out that the Court of Appeals has already removed the imprisonment sentence and that they hold no power to change the CA's decision. Aside from this, the division also believes that Marcos Jr. is not disqualified from holding any public office. Although the case was junked, former Comelec Chairman Christian Monsod, who is representing the petitioners, said that they will file a motion for reconsideration before the Bank. As for Marcos Jr., he was elated with the decision to junk the case. During his campaign in Occidental Mindoro on Wednesday, he said that this was a good development.
Of course, it's a good development, and we're happy that it happened before we came up with the
Okay, ma'am.
The presidential candidate and his slate also held a grand rally at Lipa City in the afternoon. Provincial Governor Dodo Mandanas has earlier expressed support for the unit team.
Pumili ng tunay na maglilingkod sa bayan. Maka-Diyos, makatao, makabayan. Talagang nagkakaisa. At ito ang alam ng ating mga kababayan.
For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
The battle is not yet over. This as OCTA Research Group says Robredo is statistically still in the race despite the gap from frontrunner Marcos Jr.'s numbers. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez with this report.
In OCTA Research latest presidential preference survey, presidential aspirant Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has maintained his lead with a vote of more than half of the respondents. Other than his wide lead, it can be noted that 43% of those are considered hard votes, leaving some 14% which may still be swayable.
43%, even though it may still be enough to win, it's not as daunting, kumbaga, as the 57%. In a sense, parang it gives you, as other candidates, a sense of baka possible pa.
This might be a boon for Vice President Leni Robredo, who is a far second with 22%. Another OCTA fellow, Professor Ranjit Rai, said we can't rule out just yet a Robredo win.
One can argue that VP Leni's numbers have improved since February, but the improvement, while significant, seemingly at this point it has not bridged the gap. Well, we can argue that it is still mathematically possible. It's an uphill climb.
The recent survey also shows improved optics for Robredo in Metro Manila, where the gap is slimmest between her and Marcos Jr. Rai added that while it's possible to turn things around, Robredo's camp would have to exert more effort in the remaining weeks of the campaign.
There are pathways and there's still time to campaign, and that these numbers will change. No? But the gap is quite significant, and so it will be an uphill climb.
Meanwhile, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and Senator Manny Pacquiao's ratings dropped to 9% and 7% respectively, while Senator Ping Lacson's went to 4% from 3%. OCTA is now working on their final pre-election survey. With 3 more weeks remaining before the May 9 polls, one thing's for sure, it's going to be a tough battle for the soft votes. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, we are One News.
Signal Entertainment's co-produced film Big Night bagged the Best Act Actor Award again, this time at the 19th Asian Film Festival in Rome. Actor Christian Bables won the award for his stellar performance as Darna, a gay beautician dragged into the drug war. He was tied with newcomer Vince Rillon, who stars in the film Resback. Bables also won Best Actor at the 2021 Metro Manila Film Festival. Other Filipino awardees include Brillante Mendoza for the Lifetime Achievement Award and Eric Matis On the Job for Best Film. Time for another quick break. When we return, some travelers waited long hours to get a bus ride to the province as a new operating schedule left them confused. Meanwhile, fire broke out inside the smart Araneta Coliseum, delaying the much-awaited Game 6 of the PBA Finals. And Palawan's most wanted was arrested on his birthday. How he managed to still get his cake and eat it too, we find out after the break. Still watching The Big Story, I'm Robbie Alampay. A new bus schedule has left commuters confused and stranded at terminals. This as a new window hour policy from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. take effect. Shaila Francisco explains.
Senior citizen Conrado was here as early as 8:30 a.m. to go home to Baguio. But he will have to wait for 14 hours to leave Metro Manila as the first bus trip will begin at 10 p.m.
Paghintayin ka dito, senior citizen pa. Ano gagawin namin? Matutuwa kami.
Other commuters are also complaining as some of them waited since 4 in the morning.
Gutom po ma'am eh. Medyo
Pinakalam na nga si Mura dahil kulang sa budget. Galing pa akong Bicol. Abol ako sa kasal ng anak ko bukas, Sambales.
Others decided to hire vans. It will cost them 800 to 1,300 pesos per head compared to the 300 peso fare for buses. Some bus companies in EDSA explained that all trips in Metro Manila terminals will happen between 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. starting today. But a transport group warns this is a risk for commuters and drivers.
Lalong-lalo na doon sa mga mananakay na ibababa natin alanganing oras. Saan sila sasakay ng madaling araw?
However, the LTFRB clarified that no resolution has been made on window hours. They only advise provincial buses to stop at the Integrated Terminal Exchange or common terminals for their final destination. This as they note that some terminals in NCR have not passed health and security inspections.
Hindi namin sinasabi kailanman na alas 10 lang ng gabi hanggang alas 5 ng umaga sila pwedeng bumiyahe. Ayaw lang talaga sumunod ng mga provincial buses sa norte na doon sa ITX sila mag-terminal.
But stopping at these common terminals could mean added costs and more hassle for commuters, especially if they have to transfer between buses with big luggages. Amid the confusion, some buses still continue their trip beyond window hours. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
For the big story in sports, Game 6 of the PBA Governors Cup Finals was postponed after a fire broke out at the Araneta Coliseum earlier today. Let's get the latest on this. Marty Bautista is reporting to us live outside the Smart Araneta Coliseum. Marty, how's the situation now?
Robbie, the situation here at Araneta Coliseum is much calmer and smoother after that chaotic afternoon, but yet plenty of questions have yet to be answered as to what really happened. The smoke started to creep into the court at around lunchtime as the PBA held its 3x3 Grand Finals. Right away, players and coaching staff were evacuated from the premises. Fortunately, no damage and injuries were reported. But with the PBA Finals just hours before tip-off, many were unsure whether the game would still push through. That's when PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall arrived at the venue to check the situation. After seeing thick smoke covering the court, Marshall deemed it unplayable. Though it is still under investigation, initial reports from the Bureau of Fire Protection show that the fire sprouted from faulty wiring of an air handling unit inside the Coliseum. According to Marshall, this is the first time a fire has broken out on a PBA game day. Nonetheless, they are glad that no one was hurt and that this happened prior to fans and players entering the arena.
Buti nangyari na wala pang mga tao, na 3x3 pa lang. Kung nari, 18,000 tayo. Di ba? So, swerte pa rin. Sabi ko sa inyo, swerte pa rin. Swerte pa rin talaga tayo na ngayon agad nangyari, hindi yung kagitnaan ng Game 6 natin.
Robbie, as clarified by Commissioner Willie Marshall, the PBA Finals Game 6 has been moved to this Friday at the Mall of Asia Arena, while ticket holders for tonight's game have been advised to stand by for refund details from TicketNet. Robbie?
Okay, maraming salamat. That was Marty Bautista reporting live from the Smart Araneta Coliseum in Quezon City. Birthday lang, walang happy. Altavas Municipal Police arrested Palawan's most wanted suspect on his birthday, and yet the suspect still got his cake and got to eat it too. Altavas Municipal Police arrested Alan Barrientos de Los Angeles on April 19. Kasabay pala ni Gretchen Ho eh. Upon discovering that it was his birthday, the police officer surprised him with a birthday cake. De Los Angeles has a standing warrant of arrest for illegal possession of firearms and frustrated murder, but he is set to be released today after he posted bail. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe Philippines. Sa ngalan po ni Gretchen Ho, I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News.